Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're digging into just one source, actually, a CBS News interview. And it covers the really surprising story of actor Greg Tarzan Davis.
Right, him joining the latest Mission Impossible film, The Final Reckoning.
Exactly. But it's the path he took to get there that's, well, pretty unexpected.
Yeah, it's not your typical Hollywood story.
So our mission, you could say, is to pull out the key insights from this one interview. You know, how does an actor actually land a huge role like this?
And what about mentors? Their influence.
And those career turns you just don't see coming. It's really about understanding the story behind the role.
Yeah, getting beyond just the movie itself. There are some, really good takeaways here, I think. Things you can actually think about.
Definitely. It's not just gossip. It's about, well, aspiration, maybe.
Yeah.
Persistence.
And seeing those chances when they pop up.
Okay. So let's kick off with where he is right now. He's back in Mission Impossible.
Yep, in The Final Reckoning, playing Degas again.
And Degas, if you remember from the last film, Dead Reckoning, well, he wasn't exactly on Ethan Hunt's side initially.
No, he was definitely one of the people hunting Tom Cruise's character.
Chasing him down. But now, in this new one, The Final Reckoning, things have flipped.
Right. The interview says Degas has switched sides. He's working with Hunt now.
Fighting alongside him and the team.
And they're up against this new big bad, a rogue AI called the Entity.
Sounds very MI.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But what makes Greg's story so interesting, like you said, is the contrast.
The before and after.
Exactly. Before all the action sequences and fighting AI,
Yeah.
you won't believe this, he was teaching first grade.
Wait, really? First grade?
First grade teacher.
Okay, that's a serious career change. How does that even happen? Going from, crayons to Cruise.
Well, this is maybe the best part of the interview, I think. The spark wasn't some grand plan.
No.
No, it actually came from a conversation he had with one of his students.
Get out. The kids gave him career advice. You have to tell me about this.
Okay, so he tells this story, right? A student asks him, what do you want to be when you get older?
Oh, that classic kid question.
Yeah. And his first reaction, trying to kind of, brush it off, was just a teacher.
The safe answer.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the kid apparently pushed back, asked him what he really wanted to be.
Persistent kid.
Right. And maybe it was just that directness, that innocence, I don't know. But he admitted it.
He told the kid.
Yeah. He said he wanted to be an actor.
Wow. So a first grader basically called him out on his dream.
Seems like it. And that moment, that little interaction, it seems like that was the nudge he needed.
The catalyst.
Yeah, the catalyst to actually take that dream seriously. So he decided, right, I'm doing this. Moved to L.A.
Bold move.
Very. But here's another interesting bit he mentioned. When he first started out, he gave himself a deadline.
Oh, like what?
2 years. He said, I got 2 years to make this happen in Hollywood.
Okay, 2 years. I mean, that sounds kind of reasonable, maybe, setting a goal.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But looking back now from where he is, he actually calls that deadline foolish.
Foolish. Huh. Why foolish?
Well, his point, and I think this is a really key insight, is that creative paths, like acting, they just don't work on a schedule like that.
They're unpredictable.
Exactly. And putting that kind of arbitrary time limit on it, it just adds this huge pressure.
And you might quit right before something happens.
Precisely. You might give up too soon just because you didn't hit some date on a calendar.
Yeah.
So his advice now, which I think is great for anyone listening, is never put a time limit on your dreams.
Never put a time limit on your dreams. That's powerful. It's less about the deadline and more about just sticking with it.
Yeah, the commitment to the actual pursuit, not the clock.
Okay, so he ditches the deadline. She's committed. How do we get from that point to him landing a role in Mission Impossible that was literally written for him?
Okay, so this is where the Tom Cruise factor really comes in. It's huge. That Degas role. It wasn't a typical audition.
No. How did it happen then?
It was all because Tom Cruise saw him in another movie they did together.
Which one?
Top Gun. Maverick.
Wait, seriously? Cruise saw him in Maverick and just picked him for Mission Impossible.
Pretty much. Davis shared the actual quote from Cruise in the interview.
Okay, what did he say?
Cruise apparently told him something like, "We liked what you did in Top Gun, Maverick. We wanted to bring you into this," meaning MI.
Wow.
And then the kicker, "We wrote this character for you named Degas."
They wrote it for him based on his Top Gun performance.
That's what he said. Cruise saw something he liked and basically created a spot for him in his other massive franchise.
That's incredible. It really shows how making an impression in one thing can lead to something completely unexpected.
Totally. And remember that detail about the name Degas.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that earlier. What was it?
Well, Davis is from New Orleans, right?
Okay.
Which has, a lot of French history, French heritage. The name Degas nods to that.
Yeah.
It suggests it wasn't just any character. It was tailored, tailored to Greg.
So cool. Like a little personal touch. So, man, first grade classroom, inspired by a student, moves to LA, drops the deadline, impresses Tom Cruise in Top Gun, gets a character written for him in Mission Impossible. That is quite a journey.
It really is. And working with Cruise on 3 big films now, that relationship seems pretty significant too.
Yeah, the interview touched on that, right? He sees Cruise as more than just a co-star.
Oh, definitely. He explicitly calls Cruise a mentor figure.
Which makes sense, I guess, given Cruise basically pulled him into 2 giant franchises.
Right. Cruise clearly saw potential and gave him huge opportunities.
And there was that detail about his phone contact.
Oh, yeah. That was great. He said he saves Tom Cruise's number in his phone under Uncle.
Uncle, not Tom Cruise or boss or something.
Uncle.
Wow. That speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the kind of relationship they have?
It really does. Suggest trust, guidance, maybe even something kind of like family, Yeah. It really paints a picture of that mentorship.
Definitely more than just colleagues. Okay, let's shift just a bit. The interview also got Greg's take on the Mission Impossible franchise itself and Cruise's place in it.
Yeah, he had a very, very clear view on that.
What did he say?
He basically said, Mission is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is Mission.
Whoa. That's unambiguous.
Pretty definitive, right?
Why does he feel so strongly about that? Did he explain?
Yeah, he mentioned that he sees it as Cruise's baby.
His baby?
Yeah, noting it was like one of the very first films Cruise ever produced way back.
Okay, so it's deeply personal for Cruise.
That seems to be Greg's perspective. Having been inside it now, he feels like the franchise and Cruise are just completely intertwined. He said it'd be hard to imagine Mission impossible without Tom Cruise attached.
Makes sense. And the source mentioned the film details Paramount Pictures distributing, and it's set for release Friday, May 23rd.
Right.
Okay, let's try and wrap our heads around this. What are the big takeaways here for you listening?
Well, first off, I think it's that whole nonlinear path thing. It's okay if your career doesn't look like a straight line.
Yeah, teacher to action star is about as zigzaggy as you can get.
Right. And then there's the idea that really important feedback, like life-changing inspiration, can come from totally unexpected places.
Like first graders.
Exactly. You got to be open to listening, maybe.
And then the deadline thing, that really stuck with me. His realization that putting that 2-year clock on his dream was foolish.
Yeah, that's a big one. It challenges that whole pressure we put on ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? That idea that success has to happen by X date.
It suggests maybe focusing on the effort, the persistence is more important than the timeline.
And finally, the mentorship aspect. And just, doing good work when you get a shot.
Making that impression.
Yeah. Being seen, being recognized, and then building that trust with someone who can help guide you. It could open doors you didn't even know were there.
So, quick recap then. We talked Greg Tarzan Davis, back as Degas in the new MI, but this time fighting with Ethan Hunt.
Right, against that AI threat.
We unpacked the amazing story of how he got that role. Basically, Tom Cruise seeing him in Top Gun Maverick and saying, we need him, let's write a part.
And trace it all the way back to his teaching days.
Inspired by a student's question to actually chase the acting dream.
Then learning that lesson about not putting deadlines on dreams.
Foolish deadline, yeah. And the mentorship with Cruise, the whole uncle thing.
And his view of Cruise's mission. Impossible.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Greg Tarzan Davis, who's literally achieved massive Hollywood success, calls putting a time limit on his dream foolish.
Right.
So what does that mean for your big goals, the ones that seem maybe years away or really challenging?
What if you took the clock off? Removed those arbitrary deadlines.
And just committed to the pursuit itself, no matter how long it takes? What might change?
Something to think about.